Hi, I'm Margaret Case, and I'm going to talk to you about participant observation. Participant observation is a form of data collection used in a variety of research methods where the researcher is an instrument of data collection. The researcher immerses themselves in a setting or culture, observes and gathers data, and then uses that data to draw conclusions about the people and their behavior. A participant observation can be structured, where they are recording behavior in words, or unstructured, observing, active listening, or complete immersion. This form of data collection came from anthropology. At first, I thought it was strictly observing people as though they were in the field, but it is much more. Participant observation is used in qualitative research, not quantitative research. Strategies or approaches that may guide participant observation could be ethnography, phenomenology, or case studies. Participant observation methods can include passive observation, complete participation with disclosure, or immersion without disclosure to the subjects. Data collection methods can be video logs, written notes about behavior, interview notes, observations about artifacts, and memo writing to subjects. Some participation observation studies are strictly observations, but in many cases the actions of the subjects cause the researchers to develop and ask more questions of the subjects, and theory is built as the observation progresses. Ethics play an important role in participant observations. The subjects of the study must be made aware they are being observed for study and must sign an agreement to participate in the research. This is particularly important for vulnerable populations and when the observer is in a position of power. Participant observation is important because it helps to explain some of the phenomenon found in settings and cultures, the reasons why processes work, and provides the opportunity to ask questions immediately after observations. Some of the advantages of participant observation are: the observations are very authentic, as the researcher is immersed in the situation, experiencing the setting as though they are the subject being studied. The researcher's observations are based in facts that were witnessed very recently. The researcher has more than one medium of data available to them, such as written notes, recordings, observations of artifacts, written material, signs, and elements in the setting. Some of the drawbacks of participant observation are the time required for each observation study. Ethical considerations can be a challenge if participants are unable to provide informed consent due to language, mental capacity, or age. The conclusions of the participant observation studies are limited in that these can only really apply to the setting and participants who were observed, meaning that only hints of theory and generalizations happen with each study. I took a look at 3 articles about 3 unique participant observation studies. They were fascinating. The results of each study were unique and not congruent with the other papers presented here. The topics of the articles are very different from each other. In each of the studies, the weaknesses were really about the small number of participants in each study, meaning the conclusions are very specific to each situation and not attributable to a general population. The first study I looked at was Aboriginal students engaging and struggling with critical multiliteracies. This fascinating article was about a school in Saskatchewan where a new teacher was trying to engage students and achieve learning outcomes and was having little success. Students were absent, distracted, and ignoring the teacher's instructions. The author of the study was asked to help with teaching methods. The researcher decided to use a mixed method of data collection that included participant observation, interviews, and reading classroom documents. Analysis of this data provided conclusions that were then used in the setting, and the results of the new ideas were observed. This cycle continued until the students achieved learning outcomes that satisfied both the teacher and the students. Their research questions were well stated and appropriate to the research problem. They're here. These methods were, in my opinion, very effective, as the author had a research plan, carried it out, and documented well. She introduced new methods into the setting in Cycle 2 and gained the intended effect. The students learned about how language and literacy are used to construct their identities and gained an understanding of themselves. The only ethical issue I noticed was that the author did not mention informed consent of the students or teacher. but it may just not have made it into the article. The second article I looked at was Maximizing Theoretical Contributions of Participant Observation While Managing Challenges. This article had a strong emphasis on the value of participant observation as a method of data collection and less emphasis on the details of the setting or the participants. This study clearly stated the purpose of the research: to explain nurses' perspectives of managing practice in a hospital setting with older adults and minimizing strain during their work time. These authors intended to also show the contributions of participant observation as a research method. The authors did not have a hypothesis, and they were committed to using an open approach and let the methodology and theories evolve as the study progressed. These methods were very appropriate, including using an author who was a credible practitioner in the profession. The authors did discuss the method and process quite well, but did not discuss the conclusions they drew from their research. This article was extremely helpful in understanding the data collection method of participant observation, and the other two articles help to understand the method through examples of observations and theory development. The third study, Beyond the Black Box of the Therapeutic Community for Substance Abusers, a participant observation study on the treatment process, was super interesting, and it involved full immersion in an addiction treatment community, with the author participating in all the activities of other people who were undergoing treatment. This study clearly stated the problem and the purpose of their research at the beginning of the article, that a residential setting of addiction treatment was successful, but it was not known how or why it was successful. Part of the issue was that funding for the treatment programs depended on an explanation of the program in order to fit funding criteria. The other reason for the research was to hopefully replicate the program in other settings. The researcher decided to use a mixed method of data collection that included an immersed participant observation, interviews, and examination of artifacts, tools used in the setting like slips of paper and a board to record your mood. The researcher was able to ask questions based on the observations and get a lot of details. The authors did not clearly state their research questions. This study was framed more as an open observation that would be examined within other research and theories. One of the challenges of this study was how time-consuming it was to become a participant in a therapeutic community, where each member is consumed by chores, therapy, and a strict regime of tidying and socializing. There were many rules, such as using no technology, no contact with the outside world, and strict timing for eating and sleeping. I got a sense that the author didn't have as much time as she wanted for recording data, so it's possible she missed some of the data or it was inaccurate. These methods were, in my opinion, very effective, as the author not only observed the situation but was also able to fully experience the community. The author was able to explain the emotional impact of residing in the community, the effects of the communication tools, and the benefits of group therapy. The authors emphasized that participative action was the only method of research missing from most of the other studies on therapeutic communities, so the author succeeded in beginning to fill the gap of data and research by using this method. I enjoyed this study, particularly the details of the observations and descriptions of the tools and techniques to help people understand emotions and have better communication skills. I didn't notice any ethical issues in this article. Overall, I found this research method very interesting. I'd like to try it. I didn't find that the studies I chose were consistent in how they used this research method, how data was presented, and what results the authors came up with. Participant observation is unique in each study, and I think it would be hard as a researcher that all the work done in these studies didn't result in a life-changing eureka moment in the fields where the work was done. It would help me as a researcher to see my participant observation as one piece of a 500 or 1,000 piece puzzle contributing to a larger body of research. Well, that's it. Thanks for listening. Please take a look at the questions below, and I look forward to online discussion.